The information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Welcome, everybody. You are watching The Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we are so glad that you joined us today. We're excited about today's episode and the theme that we continue to embark on: engaging conversations, elevating health and wellness, and empowering transformation. And as we are rolling, let me direct you to some information that would be helpful for you for today. So at the bottom of your screen, don't forget that there's a little tab that says show note. You're going to find information pertaining to our guest today, the valuable gems that she's going to drop, and some reference points for your takeaways. So we definitely encourage you to continue to lean in because we are going to get our learning on today. And as we are moving forward in life and in all of our days and optimizing how we are stepping into our new level of truth, today's episode is one that really speaks to so many of us, especially for, say, women, moms, say teenage daughters in particular. So I'm excited to introduce you our guest today. So her name is Melissa Rohlfs. And Melissa Rohlfs, she's a certified holistic health and life coach. She helps busy moms and teen girls find freedom from the struggle when it comes to food, so they can be at peace with food, their bodies, and then their lives. And she's committed to empowering women to break free from dieting, the emotional eating, and the self-image issues, so that they too can ditch the diet mentality and feel empowered in their own skin. She has authored a book, and the title is Finding Freedom: Overcoming Your Obstacles to Live a Free and Fulfilled Life. And we're going to dive into all of that, and allow me to bring up Melissa Rohlfs. Melissa, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we're excited. Tell us a little bit about your backstory. So you're certified holistic and health coach, and let's go into that. How did you get from there to here, and what were some turning points along the way? Loaded question. Let's get into it.
All right, let's do it. So I never thought I would be here. I always wanted to be Katie Couric, was going to be a TV news anchor, and that was kind of my goal. So the fact that I'm doing this is a little bizarre, but it all began. I remember being like an 8-year-old little girl and hiding food and cookies and candies and sweets in my room. So my relationship with food and using food to help me feel better started in childhood, carried throughout high school, college, into marriage, motherhood, and finally when we had kids was kind of my point of enough is enough. I don't want to do this anymore, and really did some work and found healing from that struggle with food and why I was using it. And so here I am, paying it forward, helping others do the same. Very brief version for you.
Why is the relationship with food so complex, especially for us women? Where are some of its origins from what you found in your studies?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think there are many layers to it. I think part of it is that we need food to survive. It's not something that we can go without. So it's kind of an easy addiction, if you will. Whereas things like drugs or alcohol or cigarettes, we don't need those things to live, but we need food. So I think it's really easy to kind of justify that and saying, oh, I was hungry. So I love to use the example of if I went to school to pick up my kids in the car line today and I was completely toasted, I would get judged. But if I had eaten 5 or 6 blizzards on the way there, I wouldn't have that same judgment. So I think there's, a societal pressure and value as well. I think that we love food. I think we use food a lot to celebrate for a lot of things in life, and that's great, but it makes it kind of easy to twist and navigate that. And I think we also have societal imaging on what women should look like and what size we should be and what our body should look like. And so all these messages from society, from other people, from ourselves, from our childhood really kind of play into effect in that.
So what kind of messages did you remember that stuck with you growing up, be it good or bad, as you were
Yeah.
as you were coming into your own?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I just have so many memories of my mom being on like the grapefruit diet, or she would go to Weight Watchers, or she would do Slim Fast, or she would go to aerobics. And it was almost like there was never this peacefulness or contentedness with her body. It was always something she was trying to change or trying to make different or lose weight or be smaller or whatever that may be. So I feel like that was a big message. And then I think in the teen years, you got the magazines for my generation, like 17, and just the different messaging that we as teenage girls got, saying what we should look like and what beautiful is and what pretty is. And I think those two things were really a big part of the journey for me.
Do you remember discussing or talking about food with your mom, being that this is a focus where you are today? Do you ever remember having any conversation with her about her thoughts on food, or her sharing with you what she thinks about food?
Not at all. And now we have those conversations, but growing up, never. And in fact, when you said that, it sparked something too. I remember going to like my grandparents' house, and every time we were there, she would grab cookies from the cookie jar. So it was like this continually trying to lose weight, but then eating the cookies. Like it was this very much push or pull, and it was never ever discussed.
So as a young adult, you are moving through life. What were the turning points for you to where you thought, okay, wait a second, let's pump the brakes. Let's wait a second here. Let's just reassess. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I think that big moment for me, I can remember it plain as day, was we had a newborn baby who was not sleeping through the night. So I was exhausted. We also had a daughter who was a year and a half who had some food allergies. Sorry, she was 2.5. Food allergies that we didn't know about, and some sensory processing challenges we also didn't know about. So she was just kind of whiny. So I've got an exhausting child. I've got a whiny child. I've got a husband who's traveling for work. And then on top of that, I had just been diagnosed with PTSD from childhood trauma. So that was kind of like my hold on, wait a minute, we need to figure this out. And that really caused me to do some research on holistic healing and health, and meeting with a naturopath and learning about vitamins and minerals and the impact that food has on overall health and mood and energy, and beyond just the weight piece, because that message was so heavily conveyed to me. Food is only about weight, but to learn that it was about so much more was really kind of my life-changing moment, where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is life-changing.
So when you look back, at what point in hindsight can you detect that you started to use food as some sort of coping mechanism as you were growing up?
Yeah, it was started when I was that 8-year-old little girl. I mean, I hid food in my room. There was cookies and candies and Pop Tarts, and all of it was junk food essentially, because that's what I used to make myself feel better. And I think that just carried throughout high school and into college. I remember being in my sorority house and finding, like bags of chips and the desserts and just the things, and eating those. So I think that started in 8-year-old childhood for me, and then just carried through into college, into marriage, into motherhood, until that moment where I was like, no more, I'm not doing this. I don't want to pass this on to my kids.
I'm giggling because I remember college, and although I wasn't in a sorority, but I do remember just how food was just the snacks, the chips, the pizza, the all of the things that was almost like consumed. I consumed, my roommates consumed, just in a gluttonous way. Do you remember at any point in time, was this something that was just a subconscious peer pressure, or was it just everyone's doing it, so no big deal?
I think it was me leading my own ship and just doing it like on my own. Cause I think for me in childhood, food had just come to like mean so much, and it was there for me. It didn't judge me. It didn't criticize me. Like it was always there. It was very much a constant. And so I think that belief from childhood just carried through. And I was a lot of times the only one eating.
So fast forward a little bit more. You're a mom of two. You're going through some of these issues where you're stopping and you're assessing and you're gathering the right resources. What helped you at that moment to stop and pause and start to identify where you needed to put the most emphasis on for you to grow?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there were so many things that happened at once in that time. But I think kind of the eye-opening moment for me was, since our son wasn't sleeping and he was just kind of fussy one day, we had started doing chiropractic care with our daughter. So I took him to the chiropractor to get adjusted. And she said, he's awfully fussy. What did you eat? Because I had been nursing. And I said, oh, I had some Oreos, thinking end of conversation. But no, she was like, how many Oreos did you have? And at that point, I kind of had to tell her that I'd eaten the whole package. And she said, I know that you are stressed and you are tired, but those cookies are not helping you and they're not helping your child. And that was kind of a light bulb moment as to, okay, maybe this isn't the best way to handle my feelings, my overwhelm, my stress, my exhaustion, because that was just a pivotal moment of, okay, maybe this is more about food than I realized.
Did you have any indicator, or were you having a finger on the pulse with your nutrition at that time, becoming a mom?
Not at all. In fact, this is kind of embarrassing now based on what I know. At the time, I didn't know. I did to some degree, but with our daughter, when I was pregnant with her, every day I went to McDonald's and I had a cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke every day of my pregnancy. That's what I had.
And was that because when I hear you say that, was it out of convenience? Did you feel like, you know what, I'm running around, let me just go ahead and it's right here. It's a quick grab and go. Was it a craving that you had? What was part of that picture?
I think it was the craving, because I was so sick with her. Like, I had morning sickness the whole entire time, and that was the only thing that made me feel better. Of course, I didn't know or even think to, like, maybe there could be another alternative to this morning sickness and this nausea than just eating McDonald's.
Now, did your OB-GYN have any input? Did they talk about that when you were pregnant? Was that something that was brought up in terms of your nutritional intake? Or, okay, you're shaking your head now.
Not that I can recall. It's possible that it was, but I do not recall that being a topic of conversation.
And you know what's alarming at times is that as we are putting a bigger spotlight on how we're self-advocating and using our voice to take better control of our health, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm stumbling upon situations where the doctor patient relationship is that the dialogue isn't where it could be, or maybe that it's pressed for time and that there's no room to have a detailed dialogue about what all we should be doing so that we could take better care of ourselves. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. And I think another piece of that puzzle is that a lot of times doctors get very little training on nutrition. I think I heard at one point they get 1 semester. That's it. Where it's just so interesting. The more I have learned about food, on the impact of overall health and immune support, like, you would think there would be more time and space dedicated to learning about that, because it affects everything.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not throwing shade at doctors,
Right.
but it highlights where there's a gap.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe we've not talked, and not maybe, but we've not talked about this until this day and age where we are today.
Right.
And that 1 semester of nutrition is just not cutting it to do a sole reliance on what they're saying. But then it also seems like we need to start using our voice to then say, ask the questions, to, you know, eyes and ears open, so that we're taking in as much information, that we're processing, that it's more of a collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like there's ever apparent reason to do so today than ever before.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
So you're paving the way. So take us back to, you're learning that, okay, self-discovery, these are some aha moments, these are some areas that I need to address. What helped you, what reaffirmed for you that you were on the right path and that this was something that you needed to continue to do?
I think it was after my stepdad passed away. So my real dad passed away when I was 2. That was part of my trauma. But then my stepdad passed away after my kids were a little bit older. And watching him in that hospital room and seeing him pass away, he had been kind of in and out. And I remember he was sitting there eating like brownie bites, and the man was diabetic. And I'm like, why are you eating that? Like, why are you not eating food that would nourish you and energize you and really help you maybe kick this thing? And so I remember he told my mom, Melissa is so knowledgeable in nutrition and health, and she really needs to be helping other people. So shortly after he ended up passing away, I went to school and became a health and life coach. And just going through that certification, that training, everything I learned affirmed that I was in the right place doing the right thing.
And so I'm sorry for your loss. As you were so getting the training, how long, what were some discoveries that you came across that you didn't know before that maybe we all need to know that's not what are some touch points about that maybe society doesn't know that we should know?
Oh my gosh, so much. I feel like the big thing is that like weight loss and health is way beyond just fitness and nutrition. Yes, that is a piece of the puzzle, but other things like stress and sleep and daily habits really play a huge part. You can eat the healthiest meal under stress, but if your body's in a stressed out state, it's not going to assimilate and digest all of the nutrients. So really, I think stress is a big piece of the puzzle that we would be beneficial to focus more on just for overall health. I feel like there's just so many things that affect who we are. One size doesn't fits all. That's not a message that's really spread. It's more like, here, I did this plan and I got this result. You'll get the same thing. But really to kind of take into account our bioindividuality, our uniqueness, I think that's super important. Gosh, there were just so many nuggets. Those are the top ones that come to mind right now.
So then, so obviously you get credentialed and you're able to speak in this space. What is the biggest concern that you came across when you just first entering and then becoming the holistic and health coach that you are today?
I think the biggest obstacle is I think people want that quick fix. They want to just change one thing and have it just magically, mystically change. And that's not really how it works. Like it's a process, it's a transformation, it's a journey. And I think that we need to be a part of it and we need to give ourselves permission and space and invest in ourselves to do that. Because a lot of times we just want the easy way, because I know life is hard and it's overwhelming and I totally get that. But I think really kind of doing the work is where the benefit and the transformation is. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I saw was that people don't want to do the work. They want the results, but maybe don't want to do what it takes to get there.
And when you think about the kind of conversations you're having with medical professionals, so I'm assuming that they're emerging as just time passes. What has been the surprising outcome of some of that dialogue?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think just that gap that we alluded to earlier, like they don't know all of the impacts of the nutrition on overall health, and they don't know how food affects every part of the body and how all of these things work together. I think that we really, as a society, want to silo things off. So we put our food in this category, we put our health in this category, we put our life in this category, but really they're all interconnected and they affect one another in a beautiful synergistic way. But we have to be aware that that's how it works instead of just siloing it off.
Have you had, or let me back up, has this changed your relationship with your healthcare providers that are in your corner, like say your primary physician, your OB-GYN, like the role that you play today, has that caused your relationship or the dialogue to shift with your medical dream team that's in your corner?
100%. I've gotten a lot more selective on who those people are and kind of what they believe and what their background is, what their training is, because it's super important to me that we're on the same page and we have the same frame of mind kind of going in. So I think that that's definitely been a game changer.
What's been your biggest breakthrough as a professional who's guiding others?
I think giving people the permission and the knowledge that they are their own best health advocate is really powerful, because I think a lot of times we want to outsource that and we want to do what other people tell us to do, but we have the power within us. Like we are our own best health experts. We know our bodies best, we know what we need best, but we've just been taught to kind of outsource that. So really helping people tap in and become their own advocate and listen to and trust themselves, I think is a really big breakthrough for me, but all the people that I've worked with as well.
Fantastic. We're going to take a commercial break. We will be right back here on the Health Revolution. We're back here on the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. A quick shout out to our sponsor, Biomed IV, here in Colorado, Colorado's only mobile IV service. And we are spending some quality time today with my guest, Melissa Rohlfs, and she is a certified holistic health and life coach. She's also the author of this book I have in my hands. It's Finding Freedom, Overcoming Obstacles to Living a Free and Fulfilled Life. And I want to talk about this book and segue into some points, some takeaways that we all need to be aware of. So, talk a little bit about what was behind creating this book, and what was. Let's start there.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to let people know my story. I feel like there were a lot of things that I overcame. And I think it's really easy when you want to change or start a journey of transformation or healing to kind of have the mindset of, oh my goodness, I can't do that. And you come up with all these reasons why you can't do that. And I really wanted this book to kind of show them that you can, like, regardless of what obstacles you have had, you have come against, you can change and you can transform, and you don't have to stay stuck where you are.
And I'm just flipping to a page. This is something I love to do on the show because I think it's to pull excerpts from your book. What you've penned is also impactful. So here you have at chapter 4, you've titled this, "You've Been Fed a Bunch of Crap," literally. And you mentioned here in a couple of sentences, one thing that really opened my eyes as my journey began was the impact of food on our life. And you put that in big letters, bold letters. Note I said life, not weight. I think so many times we view food in terms of calories in, calories out, yet don't think about the quality of food or the impact it has on us. Can you elaborate how you came to talk about that we've been fed a bunch of crap?
Yeah, because I feel like it's true. And I feel like that's kind of a controversial subject, and I kind of hate to say that, but it's amazing to me if you look at the way that people can't handle things like gluten and dairy here in the States, but when they go overseas and they travel, they're able to have it without any problems. And so I think the manufacturing laws around food are a lot different in other countries than they are here. And it just kind of makes you wonder why. Like, why are we loading our food with preservatives and ingredients that our bodies were never meant to digest, that they don't know how to process? And how is that affecting our health?
So one question I do have for you that I actually asked my previous guest,
Okay.
and I'm curious to get your take on it, is splitting the hairs between, say, what a person finds that it's a choice between the choices we make, and then a victim of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
For example, just that we are just the product of our environment. How much of the splitting of the hairs does that end up looking like when we get really granular with those two components, adding with how we move today in life and our relationship with food?
I think it's a great question, because I do think there are things that impact that. I mean, I think things like budget matter. I think, there are people who maybe are on WIC or food stamps, and the quality of foods that those programs are able to purchase, they often aren't as high quality as some of the other options available, for example. So I think that that's a piece of it. And it's hard to say. I feel like the system kind of as a whole is broken, if I can be so bold as to say that. Because I just don't think that the food is really giving us the nourishment and the nutrition that we need. And especially if there are people who are of lower income, or who are on government assistance, or who aren't able to afford the organic and the grass fed and all the things that are healthier. I think there's this disparity between the two.
So one of the big components to the whole picture is how the food industry has evolved and impacted our lives, especially since the 1970s. That seemed to be the fork in the road where things have changed. The ingredients that we're starting to find, the products, the processed ingredients, and then the gains that the food industry oftentimes that we discover that are part of it, the financial gains. How do you navigate through some of the messages that we get from the food industry, and how do you start to advocate for yourself if all you've ever known is, well, this is how I've always eaten this, these are the foods that I gravitate towards, this is what's available to me? Where does one begin? And I know it's kind of a loaded question, but I'd love to unpack this a little bit with you.
No, I think it's a great question because, as you know, my mom was just visiting from out of state, and we had this conversation. We were making our kids' lunches, and I was like, "Remember, Mom? I used to have a piece of Velveeta cheese in between two pieces of white bread. Like that was my lunch with some Doritos and a Coke, and call it a day." And so I think it is very possible to go from what you came from and what you know and change that, because I'm living proof. I think part of it is really figuring out how food makes your body feel. Like, there are foods that either energize you and make you feel amazing, or there are foods that maybe don't make you feel amazing and they drain your energy and they make you feel lethargic. So I think a big piece of that is really connecting with your body and understanding how what you're putting in it is affecting you, your energy, your moods, if it makes you bloated, if it hurts your stomach. Like, our bodies are always talking to us. We just haven't been taught how to listen to them. So I think that's a big piece of the puzzle, because when you understand how food makes you feel, you want to feel good. And I think you're more drawn to those foods that make you feel good. So that's why I don't eat the Velveeta and the white bread anymore, because it didn't make me feel good.
Very true. I hear you. So when we look at, so shifting gears a little bit with when it comes to women and then teenage girls, and if we take into consideration the messages we get, the messages that we're sorting through about what's ideal, what we should be doing, and then bridging the gap with our nutrition, what can help us close the gap and allow us to, no pun intended, streamline and refine our path so that we're taking our health in the right direction, and we're, as we're combating the just the messages we get in life about just a role that a woman has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's so much to that. I think that we do have a lot of weight because of our role as women. And so I think, understanding and teaching your family how to listen to their bodies, how to connect with what foods make them feel good. I think that one thing to do that would be really simple is to start to read the labels on the ingredients in your food and understand how those ingredients are affecting you, how they're affecting your kids, how they're making you feel, because I think that's a big thing for us. When we went away from the processed foods and started to eat more whole foods in their natural form, that was a big shift. And so I think that can be something that you can just, simply choose one thing at a time, so it's not overwhelming, it's not over, budgeting in that sense of the matter, but really just kind of being mindful as to what we're putting in our bodies and how it's affecting us, and helping your kids and yourself and your spouse kind of connect those dots and seeing how food makes them feel.
So I want to talk about something that is a practical issue that happens more oftentimes than we talk about. I want to talk about how, say, a woman who is part of her family, that she is a leading voice in that family, right? And so, say she is a spouse and a mother. Where does she begin to deal with pushback that might come from spouse and kids if she decides, you know what, now that I think about it, we haven't been healthy, and it really means a lot to me if we start being healthy as a family? Where does she start? Because oftentimes, let's be honest, there is pushback from members of the family where it's like, oh, wait a minute, oh, what is this healthy? What's happening here? I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah. I think there are two approaches, and I'll just make my suggestions and people can do what they will. One way is to do exactly what you said, kind of sit down, have a family meeting, say, hey, I'm interested in us becoming more healthy. This is what I'd like to do. Kind of get some buy-in, get their opinions, include them in the grocery shopping, the meal planning, make them a part of it so they feel like they have a voice. That could be one way. The other way is to just kind of do it and do things like add, different fruits, different vegetables, maybe drop some spinach in some smoothies and try to hide it, see how they feel, see if they notice. I think those could be two things, depending on the level of kickback that might come their way.
And what if and I want to dig a little bit more about this, because I've had conversations with women over the years as a health and fitness professional, that I get the yeah buts sometimes, of the yeah but my husband, or yeah but my spouse, and they're not playing along, they're not, I feel like we're two polar opposites. Where can one start to unpack to at least get to a compromising point where there could be like a meeting of the minds and a compromise that works for everybody?
I think having that conversation and asking where can we compromise here? What are your non-negotiables? What are my non-negotiables? And then maybe kind of seeing if you can meet in the middle. I think the other thing that could be possible is if she is really just, so devoted and dedicated to making those changes, maybe she just does them. And then the family comes alongside eventually after they see how much better she feels, how much more energy she has. Maybe they want to then come along after they've seen her change. Because I think a lot of times we don't want to change because we're afraid that we won't belong or the relationship will change. And if belonging means to be the same as, there's a fear that maybe something will change if we change or if we take that step. So I think maybe another way is just to do it and let people come along.
Because I know that and have you, let me back up a little bit. Have you seen this as a big trend, or is this a common situation that comes up as you're working with others, as you're working with women? Is that one of the bigger ones? And if there's an even bigger one, what are some other trends that you see as situational obstacles that crop up when somebody's wanting to change their eating lifestyle and habits?
Yeah, I think the one thing is usually the woman wants to do it because she wants to lose weight. And so she will want to change her diet and then let everybody else eat the same, because maybe she isn't aware that it's about more than weight and there's health and energy and different components of it. So I think that's one thing I see a lot is the woman wants to change her nutrition, her diet, her life to lose weight, but the family isn't on board because it's just kind of her personal journey. I think the other thing I see is if you are doing this as a woman and maybe your family is on board, you have other family members who are food pushers at the holidays and they're like, oh my goodness, you're looking so thin. You need to eat these mashed potatoes. I made them just for you. And they kind of make you feel bad. They make you feel guilty. They unintentionally, of course, do this. I think that's one thing. And I think friends can do the same thing too. If you go out for a girls' night out or a mom's night out and everybody's having cupcakes, do you have one or do you not? Like, I think there's a lot of family dynamic and societal pressure that goes into that when we want to change.
So, share with us a couple of statements that are helpful to combat some of those pressures. I've heard women say before, well, I don't know what to say when I'm in this situation. I don't know what to do. And so, what are some statements that you like for women to utilize, or to at least have in their arsenal of responses, so that they can honor their space and still and keep the integrity of their health journey?
I love that. I love to help people be prepared because I think that's the hardest thing is it's going to happen, but how do you handle it when it happens? So this isn't a saying, but you are always welcome to say, I need to use the restroom. And you can go to the bathroom. You can kind of compose yourself, take some breaths. I think that can be like an individual skill. But then I think as far as some word choices, you could say things like, oh, thank you so much. I'm not hungry right now. Or I appreciate that you made this for me. Thank you so much. I'm not hungry right now, but I will take some home and I will enjoy it later. Or, I appreciate the gesture. This isn't quite in alignment with my health goals right now. I'm trying to make some changes and this just doesn't make me feel good. I think you can just be honest, depending on the relationship, of course, you have with the person.
I want to talk about something that is also not a common topic that we address as moms. I'm also a mom. I have 4 kids, and I remember wanting to stay healthy, and so I would implement healthier tactics. And seeing some of my friends at the time utilize foods to quiet a fussy baby or toddler, or how do you how does a parent break that cycle and still not feel compelled to take control of a situation where, if they're dealing with a screaming baby or a toddler, that they're just desperate to help the situation? What can help them break the cycle if they find that they've been relying on foods to calm a situation down?
I think awareness is the first thing. So even being aware of, hey, maybe when my child is fussy, I give them food to calm them down, and having that awareness is a great first step. And then I think too, taking it beyond that and saying, what else could I do to calm my child down? What would be helpful in this situation? And maybe even spend some time thinking about the situations where the child is fussy. Is it at the grocery store? Is it in the car? And think of where those moments happen and some other things you can do instead. Because what gets rewarded gets repeated. And I think that's maybe part of the cycle, is that we reward that behavior so then it gets repeated. So if we can stop that cycle and come up with some alternatives, that could be a really great starting point.
Absolutely. How do you have the right conversations with a teenage girl that is a daughter in the family, a granddaughter, all of that? Where do you begin with starting the conversation to have to talk about foods in a healthy way without giving the subconscious implementation of you better watch out, you better be careful here, and body image concerns, all of that? Where does all that fit together?
Man, that's hard, because teenage girls are hard. I've got one, and it's like hit or miss depending on the mood and hormones. But I think just being curious is really helpful. I think if we can approach situations with curiosity instead of judgment, and maybe ask them questions. Well, how did that food make you feel? Okay, you said you ate too much of this. How did that feel? And kind of help them become aware of how things affect their bodies, how they feel, how foods make them feel, how certain clothes fit, how they make them feel. And I think being curious and creating space for them to kind of share is a really great starting point, because I don't think it's helpful for us to say, you shouldn't eat that, and you ate too many of these, and you ate too many of that, and your pants are too tight. Like, that's not really helpful to anybody. And I think sometimes our issues, it's easy to project those onto our kids as well. And so we need to make sure that we work through our body issues, our body image struggles, hangups, hurdles, whatever, so that we're not projecting those onto our kids as well.
Do you find that there are more oftentimes than not that teenage girls struggle with their relationship with food? Or do you think that certain situations will trigger that, this being an area that's a struggle from what you've seen in working with others?
Most of the girls that I work with have had really hurtful things in their past, and like me, they used food to kind of comfort and make them feel better. I think that is a piece of it, but I think the other piece is, what information do they have about nutrition? Where are they learning about how to take care of their bodies? What messages are they receiving? So I think there's a couple of different things at play with teenage girls in those situations.
Oh, that's excellent. We're going to take a commercial break. We will be right back after this. Thank you so much for watching The Health Revolution. Our show is growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. No matter how you found us, please hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue to deliver amazing content to you.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Spending quality time with my guest today, Melissa Rohlfs. She is a certified holistic health and life coach, author of Finding Freedom, Overcoming Your Obstacles to Living a Free and Fulfilled Life, and helping busy moms and teen girls find the freedom from struggling from food, and so that they can have that peace. I do want to read another excerpt, if I can, from chapter 3. And I thought that this was a very impactful piece that you started the chapter with. And so it starts off with it. You say here, in true transparency, this isn't an easy chapter to write. Maybe because it takes a lot of courage to admit that we're not who we want to be. That means we're admitting that there's work to do. And we all know that change is hard. It's much easier to sit around and say, I'm fine, ignore things and act like things are fine, or buy new external things to look good on the outside, than it is to do the inner work and become the person you want to be, to change, to become the person you know you can be, the person inside of you waiting to get out. I thought that was a very impactful thought that you had leading into chapter 3. Say a little bit more about that, what that means to you and your thought process as you were writing this.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we all see the movies, we see the TV shows. We're told, at least I was, maybe this was just my takeaway from childhood, was that you get married, you have 2.5 kids, the dog, the white picket fence, and everything is fine. I grew up watching the Brady Bunch and shows where it was one big happy family. And I was not that mom. Like, I was very angry. I was crabby. I didn't like who I was, but I had all the things. I had the house. I had the white picket fence. I had the dog. I mean, I had the picture, but there was a disconnect. And so I think for me, it was doing that work and getting that healing and really finding that freedom from the struggle with food, because I had relied on it for so long. It was an addiction. And so I think really doing the work and helping the outside match the inside was a big part of my journey.
Is it hard for our society to say, you know what, food is in fact an addiction? There are examples of food being an addiction for those who are struggling. Is that something that saying those words is just, it's something that's literally like a tug of war?
I think so, because I think it goes back to, we need food to live. So it's very easy to be addicted to something that you need, right? I mean, I think you can't take it away. You can't go cold turkey. Like, if you don't have food, you're going to die. Whereas the other things that I think people are addicted to, that's not the case.
Wow. And so as you're learning, as you continue to grow and in working with women, working with teenage girls, what are some things that are happening that allow you to remain hopeful with what we can do, putting one foot in front of the other?
I think people are more aware. I think people are starting to realize that maybe diet culture hasn't been the answer that they've looked for. They've tried all the things, but they haven't gotten the results. I think that people are kind of starting to become aware that there is more to it than maybe what we've been told. So I think that's hopeful. I think there's a lot of hopeful things. I think, a lot of people are using their voices like we are here today, and really trying to help spread this message of health and healing and transformation and change. And I think that people need to know it's possible.
So in working with women and teenage girls, do you have things that you are implementing in place today? That do you have programs coming up? Do you have a particular approach that you embrace, where if somebody wanted to work with you, that they have a few first steps? What does all that look like?
Yeah, so I do have a program for teen girls, because I do find that teen girls are very different than moms, of course. So I've got programs for both groups that kind of meet them where they're at. They cater to their individual needs, their uniqueness, what they need for those seasons of life, because they're very different. So I do have programs for both. And then I offer complimentary assessment calls where we can just talk and learn a little bit more about maybe where you're at, what you've tried, what's worked and what doesn't work. And I can share some things that might be helpful to you where you're at.
Do you ever work? So do you work with referrals? Or do those in the medical space refer you, or do they know that they're able to refer their patients, clients to you for further help, or what does that look like?
No, not quite yet. Not in terms of the medical space. We relocated a few years ago. So I feel like I'm at the point now where we've got the established connections with the professionals, and now it's time to take the next step for referrals.
What are your best allies to continue to grow and have that grassroots, that outreach movement, so that more women, more those of us in our gender are aware of what you're doing and how this can be helpful?
I think women who have struggled with food, who know what that's like, who have worked with me are really great allies because they can share, this is what happened. This is how it's different. This is what worked. This is what the process was like, as opposed to something else that maybe they've tried that hasn't worked. I think people who have struggled and have known people that have worked with me, that have seen the transformation, they've seen the change, those are great allies. I think a lot of times it's also in schools for the teenage girls, like having parents and guidance counselors and people who are aware that maybe there is a girl struggling with food or eating disorders or whatever that is. Those are great allies as well. So those are a few that come to mind.
Have you had opportunities to talk with schools, school officials, even if it's just, say, in person in your area or just in general in like a conference style environment? Have you had those conversations, and if so, what's it been like since they deal with students on a daily basis?
Yeah, so that's a great point. This morning, I just had a meeting actually at our school, meeting with the guidance counselor and the principal to share a little bit about, we have an amazing program at our school where they have a program called Take 5, where people can come in and they can share things like this. So they want me to come in and do a Take 5 with the students, but then they also have parent universities where parents can get education and information on these topics as well. So I'm going to do something with the students and then also something with the parents that I'm really excited about, because they both need the same message, but they need it in different formats.
Do you find that districts are open to new ways to connect for the health of students, specifically girls? Do you feel like story developing, conversations are ongoing and just hopeful for the future? Like what does that entail?
I think it depends on the district. My kids are at a private Christian school, and I obviously have a relationship with those people. We've been there for a few years. They know me and my kids pretty well because I'm pretty involved. So I think the relationship plays a big part for sure. But then I know that there are other Christian schools that I've worked with teenagers at that I could easily probably go in and ask to do the same thing there. So I think part of it depends on the district, where they're at, what their need is. But I would think they would be open to that because they want their students to succeed. They want them to be healthy. They want them to be well.
So probably depending upon how optimistic a district is, or like say quality, I would imagine. So yes, absolutely. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back after this.
Hi there, I'm Dan Hafner. I'm the host of the show Tech Bites with Dan Hafner. Join me live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Achieve TV network for the latest technology and business news and advice. Join me right here on E360 TV.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. We've been spending time with Melissa Rohlfs. She's a certified holistic health and life coach and author of Finding Freedom, Overcoming Your Obstacles to Living a Free and Fulfilled Life. As viewers are tuning in and taking in your information, where can they find you?
My website is free, the number 2, then coaching.com. So freetobecoaching.com right there on the bottom of the screen.
And are you on social media?
I am. I'm on Facebook under my name, Melissa Rohlfs. I'm on Instagram as freetobe_coaching. And then I'm also on LinkedIn as my name, Melissa Rohlfs.
Excellent. What is the one message you want to get out there about where we are today in our relationship with food and where we're going, what's the one message that if you had to pick one to drive the point home, what would it be?
Just one? I think I want people to know that you can change. I think, again, we think so many times, oh, I came from this, or this is how it's always been, or this is what my family did. And they don't see what's possible for themselves. I want people to know that it is possible for you. You can change and you can be free from those struggles and from those obstacles and those things that weigh you down. You don't have to carry that anymore, and you can be free and you can change because it's all within you.
So I have to ask, as you've been spearheading this journey with your family, what's been the take? What's been your family's input along the way with your husband, with your kids, all of that? What can you share?
It's so funny. I love this question because our daughter, of all people, she's 15. She will send her friends like these care packages of healthy foods, and then she'll tell them what the benefits are to the foods. And at one point she goes, it's like I'm like a health coach. And then she'll ask her friends, how much water did you drink? Have you had a bowel movement? Like, she is like totally helping her friends with their health, which I never saw happening. I love it. I think it's amazing. Our son is a little bit more resistant. He's 13, so middle school boy. But I don't know where he's at with it. He seems to do okay. He loves certain foods that I'm like, we should probably limit that a little bit, but we still, let him enjoy. And then my husband is just along for the ride because I do most of the cooking and it's kind of easier for him. So,
so he's kind of like I'll go with the flow type of approach.
100%.
And then the rest of your family tree, what's been the impact, and what's the one approach you're going to take as we enter the holiday season?
Yeah, we're kind of in a unique situation with the holidays because our family is on the Midwest and we're in Arizona. And so I think in a way that's easier for us. We don't have those pressures and that food pushing that I talked about a little bit earlier. So I think it's kind of easier for us to do our own thing, which I appreciate. But if we weren't there, I think just being mindful, setting your intentions going in. What is my goal? What do I want to feel like when the day is over? I think a lot of times we can overindulge and feel guilty and just kind of beat ourselves up, and that doesn't serve anybody. So set some intentions going in, ask how you want to feel when the day is over and really try to honor that.
That's fantastic. Melissa, I know we are running out of time. I so appreciate your time, energy, and input today. Thank you so much for sharing. And real quickly, where can viewers find your book, Finding Freedom?
It's on Amazon.
Amazon, fantastic. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I love the conversation. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who are tuning in, remember, we are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our website you see at the bottom of the screen is thehealthrevolutiontv.com. Feel free to check us out there. If you have any show ideas, show topics, things that you'd like for us to talk about, definitely let us know. Drop us a line. And also feel free to subscribe to our newsletter where you can stay up to date with all of the information that is coming up, because we do have some information coming up. And Tuesdays and Thursdays right here on the Achieve TV channel on E360 TV. And with that, we are wrapping it up. Have a great rest of your day. Until next time, we will see you soon. Take care.